Svetlana never understood why her husband went to the Dacha every weekend. After his death, she decided to sell the property, but the neighbor stopped her, saying, "Don't rush. Check the garage." He had been hiding something important there for 5 years. Before we continue, please write in the comments where you're watching this video from. The story is not true. Svetlana stood at the edge of the Dacha's overgrown garden, the late autumn wind tugging at her scarf. The small wooden house, nestled in the Russian countryside, had been her husband Ivan's sanctuary for years. Every Friday evening, without fail, he'd pack a small bag, kiss her on the forehead, and drive the 2 hours from Moscow to this isolated retreat. "I need the quiet," he'd say with a tired smile. "It's good for my soul." Svetlana never questioned it. Ivan was a cardiologist, a man who spent his days saving lives in a high-pressure hospital. She figured the Dacha was his escape, a place to fish, read, or simply breathe the crisp air. But now, Ivan was gone. A heart attack, ironically, had taken him 3 months ago at the age of 48. The cruel twist of fate wasn't lost on Svetlana, herself a nurse in the same hospital where Ivan had worked. She'd seen him collapse in the middle of a shift, his hands trembling as he clutched his chest. Despite her desperate attempts to save him, he slipped away before the ambulance could even arrive. The grief was a heavy stone in her chest, one that refused to budge no matter how many nights she cried herself to sleep. The Dacha held too many memories, and Svetlana couldn't bear to keep it. She'd decided to sell it, hoping to close this chapter of her life and move forward. She'd already found a buyer, a young couple from the city looking for a weekend getaway. They were coming tomorrow to sign the papers. Svetlana had driven out to the Dacha one last time to gather Ivan's things and say her final goodbye. As she walked through the small house, her footsteps echoed in the silence. The air smelled of pine and dust, and every creak of the floorboards seemed to whisper Ivan's name. She started in the bedroom, packing his clothes into a cardboard box. His favorite flannel shirt, the one he always wore when he chopped wood, still carried the faint scent of his cologne. Svetlana pressed it to her face, her eyes stinging with tears. She moved to the living room next, where Ivan's books lined a sagging shelf. He loved history, especially books about the Soviet era. She ran her fingers over the worn spines, wondering if he'd ever meant to share this part of himself with her more deeply. As she worked, a sharp knock at the door startled her. Wiping her eyes, Svetlana opened it to find her neighbor Dmitri standing on the porch. Dmitri was a wiry man in his late 60s, with a weathered face and a perpetual frown. He lived in the only other Dacha on this stretch of land, a few hundred meters down the dirt path. They'd never spoken much. Dmitri kept to himself, and Ivan had always handled their rare interactions. "Svetlana," Dmitri said, his voice gruff. "I heard you're selling the place." "Yes," she replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I can't keep it, it's too hard." Dmitri's eyes narrowed, and he shifted his weight uncomfortably. "Don't rush," he said after a long pause. "You should check the garage before you do anything." Svetlana frowned. "The garage? Why?" Dmitri hesitated, his gaze darting to the side as if he were weighing his words. "Even, he was hiding something important there, for 5 years at least. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not something you should ignore." Svetlana's heart skipped a beat. 5 years? That was around the time Ivan had started coming to the Dacha more frequently. She'd always assumed it was because of work stress, but now a seed of doubt sprouted in her mind. "What do you mean, hiding something?" she asked, her voice trembling. I don't know the details, Dmitri said quickly. But I'd see him go in there late at night, sometimes with a flashlight. He'd stay for hours. I never asked questions. It wasn't my place. But if you're selling, you need to know what's in there. He turned to leave, then paused. Be careful, Svetlana. Svetlana stood frozen on the porch, watching Dmitri's retreating figure disappear down the path. Her mind raced with questions. What could Ivan have been hiding? And why in the garage? She'd never paid much attention to it. Ivan had always kept it locked, saying it was full of old tools and junk he didn't want her tripping over. She'd respected his space, never pushing to see inside. But now, Dmitri's words gnawed at her. The garage was a small, weathered structure attached to the side of the dacha, its wooden walls grayed by years of harsh winters. Svetlana retrieved the ring of keys Ivan had always kept in the kitchen drawer, her hands shaking as she flipped through them. One key, smaller and rustier than the others, had to be for the garage. She grabbed a flashlight from the counter and stepped outside, the chilly air biting at her skin. The lock on the garage door was stiff, but after a few tries, the key turned with a reluctant groan. The door creaked open, revealing a dark, musty space. Svetlana flicked on the flashlight, her beam cutting through the shadows. The garage was cluttered but organized in a way that felt deliberate. Shelves lined the walls filled with boxes, jars, and old tools. A workbench sat in the corner, its surface covered with a tarp. The air smelled of oil and something faintly metallic. Svetlana stepped inside, her heart pounding. She didn't know what she was looking for, but Dmitri's warning echoed in her mind. She started with the shelves, pulling down boxes and sifting through their contents. Most of it was what she'd expected: rusted nails, a broken hammer, a few fishing rods. But as she reached the bottom shelf, she found a small metal box, its lid secured with a padlock. The lock was new, not rusted like the rest of the garage's contents. Her stomach twisted. Whatever Ivan had been hiding, this had to be part of it. She searched the workbench for something to break the lock, finding a pair of bolt cutters tucked under the tarp. With a grunt, she snapped the padlock open and lifted the lid. Inside was a leather-bound notebook, its pages yellowed but intact. Svetlana's hands trembled as she opened it. The first page bore Ivan's handwriting, neat and precise. For Svetlana, if you ever find this, I'm sorry. Her breath caught in her throat. She flipped to the next page, her eyes scanning the words. It was a journal, dated 5 years ago. The first entry read, "I've made a mistake I can't undo. I thought I could protect her by keeping her in the dark, but the weight of this secret is killing me. I come to the dacha to work on a solution, but I fear it's too late." Svetlana's knees buckled, and she sank to the floor, clutching the notebook. What mistake? What secret? She kept reading, her flashlight trembling in her hand. Ivan wrote about a patient, a man named Viktor Kuznetsov, who had died on his operating table 5 years ago. Ivan blamed himself, saying he'd missed a critical sign during surgery. But there was more. Viktor had been involved in something dangerous, something Ivan only discovered after his death. "Viktor's family came to me," Ivan wrote. "They think I killed him on purpose. They've threatened Svetlana. I can't let them hurt her." Svetlana's blood ran cold. She remembered that time, 5 years ago. Ivan had been on edge, constantly looking over his shoulder. She'd thought it was just stress from work, but now she realized it was something far darker. She turned the page, desperate for answers, but the next entry was even more cryptic. "I've hidden the evidence in the garage. If they find it, Svetlana will never be safe. I have to finish this before it's too late. Svetlana's mind reeled as she clutched the notebook. Evidence? What evidence? And who were they? She scanned the garage again, her flashlight beam darting over every corner. If Ivan had hidden something here, she had to find it. She couldn't sell the Dacha without knowing the truth, not if it meant putting herself or someone else in danger. She returned to the workbench, pulling back the tarp completely. Underneath was a wooden panel, slightly raised at one edge. Svetlana pried at it with her fingers, her nails splintering as she worked. Finally, the panel came loose, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a small metal safe, its surface scratched but sturdy. There was no keyhole, just a combination lock with 4 digits. Svetlana's mind raced. What would Ivan have used as a combination? She tried their anniversary, 0412, but the lock didn't budge. She tried her birthday, then his, but still nothing. Frustration welled up inside her, and she slammed her fist against the safe, the sound echoing in the small space. Think, Svetlana, she told herself. What mattered to Ivan? Then it hit her. 5 years ago, the time Ivan said this all began. She entered 2019, the year Victor died. The lock clicked, and the safe door swung open. Inside was a USB drive, a stack of photographs, and a folded letter addressed to her. Svetlana's hands shook as she unfolded the letter. Ivan's handwriting was shaky, as if he'd written it in a hurry. "My dearest Svetlana," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm likely gone. And for that, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to keep secrets from you, but I had no choice. Viktor Kuznetsov wasn't just a patient. He was part of a criminal syndicate. During his surgery, I found a microchip sewn into his abdomen, something he'd been smuggling. I should have reported it, but I was scared. After he died, his family came after me, thinking I'd stolen it. I hid the chip here, hoping to find a way to return it without endangering you. But they've been watching me ever since. If they find out you have this, they'll come for you. Destroy the chip, Svetlana, and run." Svetlana's heart pounded as she picked up the USB drive. She didn't have a computer here to check its contents, but the photographs told a chilling story. They showed Ivan meeting with a man in a dark alley, his face pale with fear. Another photo showed the same man holding a gun, his eyes cold and unyielding. There were notes on the back of each photo in Ivan's handwriting, dates, times, and locations. He'd been tracking these people, trying to find a way out. Svetlana's stomach churned. Ivan had been living a double life, carrying this burden alone to protect her. But now, the danger was hers to face. She stuffed the USB drive, photos, and letter into her bag, her mind racing. She couldn't sell the Dacha, not yet. She needed to know what was on that USB drive, and she needed to decide what to do next. As she stepped out of the garage, the sound of a car engine made her freeze. Headlights cut through the darkness, approaching the Dacha. It wasn't the young couple. They weren't due until tomorrow. Svetlana's blood ran cold as the car stopped, and 2 men stepped out. They were tall, dressed in dark jackets, their faces obscured by the shadows. One of them called out in a low, menacing voice, "Svetlana Ivanova, we need to talk." Svetlana's heart slammed against her ribcage as the 2 men approached. She clutched her bag, the USB drive and photos feeling like a lead weight inside. Her first instinct was to run, but the Dacha was isolated. There was nowhere to go. She forced herself to stand her ground, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Who are you? What do you want?" The taller man stepped into the light, his face hard and lined with scars. "My name is Alexei," he said, his voice cold. "You have something that belongs to us. Something your husband took 5 years ago. Svetlana's mind raced. The microchip. Ivan had mentioned it in the letter, but she didn't have it, not yet. She hadn't found it in the safe. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Alexei's eyes narrowed. Don't play games with me. Ivan hid it here. We know he did. We've been watching this place for years, waiting for him to slip up. But he's gone now, and you're the only one left who can give it to us. The second man, shorter but broader, stepped closer, cracking his knuckles. We don't want to hurt you, Svetlana, he said, but we will if we have to. Svetlana's mind flashed to the letter, Ivan's warning to destroy the chip and run. But she couldn't do that now. She needed to buy time. I just found some things in the garage, she said, her voice shaking. A USB drive, some photos. I don't know anything about a chip. Alexei's expression darkened. Show us, he demanded. Svetlana led them to the garage, her legs trembling with every step. She pointed to the safe, now empty except for a few scraps of paper. Alexei rifled through it, his frustration growing. Where's the chip? He growled, turning to her. I don't know, Svetlana cried. I swear I just found the safe tonight. I didn't even know Ivan was involved in anything like this. The shorter man grabbed her arm, his grip bruising. You're lying, he hissed. Ivan wouldn't have left you in the dark. Where is it? Svetlana's eyes darted around the garage, searching for a way out. Then she saw it, a small rusted metal box on the top shelf, one she hadn't noticed before. It was barely visible, tucked behind a jar of nails. Could that be where Ivan hid the chip? She had to distract them. I think there's something else, she said, pointing to the workbench. Maybe under there. As the men turned to look, Svetlana lunged for the shelf, grabbing the box. It was heavier than she'd expected, and she fumbled with the latch as Alexei shouted, "Stop her!" She pried it open just as the shorter man grabbed her, revealing a small plastic case inside. Nestled within was a tiny microchip, glinting in the flashlight's beam. Svetlana didn't think. She acted. She yanked her arm free, bolted out of the garage, and ran toward the Dacha, slamming the door behind her and locking it. The men pounded on the door, their shouts echoing through the night. Svetlana's hands shook as she grabbed her phone and dialed Dmitri's number. "Dmitri, please, I need help," she cried when he answered. "There are men here. They're after something Ivan hid." "I'm coming," Dmitri said, his voice grim. "Hold on." Svetlana barricaded the door with a chair, her mind racing. She needed to destroy the chip, but how? She ran to the kitchen, searching for something, anything, that could help. The pounding on the door grew louder, and then she heard the sound of breaking glass. They were inside. Svetlana grabbed a hammer from the kitchen drawer and smashed the chip on the counter, the plastic case shattering into pieces. She stomped on the fragments for good measure, her breath coming in ragged gasps. But it was too late. Alexei and the other man burst into the kitchen, their faces twisted with rage. "You stupid woman!" Alexei snarled, grabbing her by the collar. "Do you have any idea what you've done? That chip was worth millions." "I don't care!" Svetlana screamed, struggling against his grip. "Ivan died because of you. You threatened him, hunted him, and now you're after me. It ends here." The shorter man raised his fist, but before he could strike, a loud bang echoed through the dacha. The front door flew open, and Dmitri stormed in, a shotgun in his hands. "Let her go," he growled, aiming the weapon at Alexei. Alexei froze, his grip on Svetlana loosening. "This doesn't concern you, old man," he said, but his voice wavered. "It does when you're on my land," Dmitri replied. I've called the police. They'll be here any minute. You'd better leave while you still can." The two men exchanged a glance, then bolted out the door, their footsteps fading into the night. Svetlana collapsed to the floor, her body shaking with sobs. Dmitri lowered the shotgun and knelt beside her. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice softer now. Svetlana nodded, though she felt anything but okay. "Thank you," she whispered. I didn't know what Ivan was dealing with. He was trying to protect me." Dmitri sighed, his expression heavy. "I suspected something was wrong for years," he said. "I saw the cars, the late-night visits, but Ivan made me promise not to tell you. He didn't want you to live in fear." Svetlana looked at the shattered remains of the chip on the counter. "What was on it?" she asked. "Why was it so important?" Dmitri shook his head. "I don't know the details, but Ivan once mentioned it had information, names, accounts, evidence of illegal dealings, the kind of thing powerful people would kill for." The police arrived shortly after, taking Svetlana's statement and collecting the fragments of the chip. They promised to investigate, but Svetlana knew the danger might never fully disappear. She decided not to sell the dacha. Not yet. She needed time to process everything, to grieve not just Ivan's death, but the life he'd hidden from her. In the weeks that followed, Svetlana returned to the dacha often, piecing together Ivan's final years through his journals and notes. She found letters he'd written to her but never sent, full of love and regret. And slowly she began to heal, finding strength in the truth, no matter how